Hey everybody, I am Jason Truding. As you may know, I play in Sopp percussion, and this is the Brooklyn Bound podcast that I do, and I am pumped to talk to my friend Alex Sopp, who is very excited to be here. Alex, are you excited to be here?
I'm so excited to be here.
There you go. So I think we've already had this conversation, but as we were sitting in silence waiting to talk, I realized you know that I was scared of you for a long time until I realized that you were the most warm, wonderful human being in the world. But I was scared because you're such an intensely awesome everything musician, and I don't know, there was like an intensity about you that I was fearful of. Did you know this?
That's so fascinating. I think you have told me that before, but I can't really accept it as the truth. And so I forgot it. And hearing that again is pretty wild.
Because it makes no sense, I think. It makes no sense. It's true.
Yeah, well, I think I can maybe be a little bit shy with people that I don't know. And especially when I was a little younger, maybe when we were first meeting each other. So maybe I just wasn't, it's like once I get an in with someone, then hopefully that goes away.
100%, because Beth forever was like, you have to, like, actually when you started, like, people started to see the visual art that you did, Beth just kept being like, you gotta check out what Alex is up to. And I'm like, I can't talk to Alex. I'm very scared.
Like, she's mean.
Yeah, she's definitely mean.
It's just my eyebrows. They make me look really serious.
No, I don't think it's that. Okay, I'm sorry. I do digress. Very pumped that you're doing this set on Brooklyn Bound, and we're going to talk about it. But the idea of this is we're going to start before it. Then we're going to talk about it, and then we'll talk a little after it. So I don't think I know. This is the ridiculous first question, which is like, how did small Alex discover like music? What's your way into? When did you discover the flute? How did you?
It's a wild thing. So I grew up in the Caribbean on St Croix, which is part of the US Virgin Islands. And I come from a super non-musical family. They love music, pop and classic rock music, but definitely no classical music. And I think my first kind of gateway into classical music had to do with cartoon soundtracks. And specifically, there are these really old Disney Silly Symphony cartoons where there's this beautiful cow with long eyelashes who plays the flute. Right. And I was like, I want to play that. So you have to tell Mabel about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I lived in Animaniacs is where she's at, but the cow playing the flute, I love this.
Hey, I just played the Animaniacs soundtrack, the reboot. So
wait, stop. You were on it?
Yeah. It was.
I'm pointing there because like it was happening in that room like minutes ago.
I was in that room.
Oh, I'm so excited about that, Alex. I can't wait to tell LCFO they're gonna flip out. Yes. Oh, it's very fun. It's very fun.
Cool. I haven't watched it yet, but it was really fun to play. And also, just like I was saying, cartoon music in general is so much fun. But yeah, so growing up in St. Croix, there's not a whole lot of music going on down there, just a very small island. And I was lucky enough just to have this one teacher who came in for a really short amount of time, and he actually was a flutist. And so I asked my parents if I took piano lessons, but then I wanted to take flute and cello and voice. And I was just, kind of one of those kids who just hung out in the music room, and lucky enough to find the right person at the right time. And then he was leaving St. Croix to go to another job. And he kind of told me and my parents, if I wanted to be serious about music, that I probably had to get off the island. And really naive, horrible. I was awful at the flute at that point, I'm sure. But
what age were you at this moment when
13? And I mean, like I was one of the best in the islands, but like that is
it's a small place.
Pretty small place.
Oh.
And on a whim, there was a poster for Interlochen Center for the Arts on the band room wall. And I said, I want to go there. And I don't know what possessed my parents, but they said, okay. I mean, wow. I owe them so much for sending me there. I got in. I think also they took a big chance on me. And then I obsessively worked from being not even good enough to be last chair in the band at Interlochen to being, in the orchestra, but I love that time in my life where I was just so thrilled to be around people who were so brilliant and so much better than me. And I was pumped to be allowed to be the worst one in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
awesome.
yes, I am in the room. And then, it's just like that thing of surrounding yourself with people who are playing and working so brilliantly, and that just inspires you and helps you grow at amazing rates.
That's awesome. And you did four, like your whole high school was in Interlochen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've been out there one time to talk with the percussionists and hang out and know a bit, like I think when I got to music school, it was like most everybody else in my freshman class like had gone through Interlochen or had done the summers, or like it feels like a special place. I've known a lot of awesome folks there, but so it was all that it was cracked up to be. It was like you were surrounded
I
by
loved
awesome.
it. Best period in my life. I'm scared to go back. I would love to go back and visit and play or teach or do anything, but there's a part of me that's terrified of doing that because I don't want to ruin the perfect memory that I have of it. And it really was like the most sacred time.
That's amazing. And then you went through conservatory. I think you went to Juilliard.
And then I went to Juilliard.
Nice. From there and stayed there for a while. Did you do?
I did my undergrad and my master's, and then I just stayed in New York, and here I am. Hey,
all right, you left out some time there. You left out some time, but I want to ask you about that time because you do a lot. You do a lot in the scene. Like I know you, the story I told about being scared of you. What I remember, so you played in now ensemble, still playing now ensemble, Y music. I think I knew you from those scenes.
Yeah.
I think the first time when I was first learning to write music, Judd was so nice to ask me to write a piece for Now Ensemble, and I showed up and was terrified to be there to show you all the piece, and you weren't able to be there, and I was like, because Alex is gonna rip me apart.
That is so
not right. If you would have been there, totally. If you would have been there, now that I know you, you would have totally helped me through everything. But everybody in the band was so cool. Like Mark, it was like a great, awesome hang.
Awesome.
But I know you from those places. You still play in Y music. You still play with Now Ensemble, right?
Yep.
Like what's your musical life in the broader sense? And what I didn't know about you, you had a stint in like, you played with the New York Phil for a bunch, and we're like more steep scene. So what's the broad Alex musical life?
The broad Alex musical, oh gosh.
There's a lot. Actually, sorry to keep talking, but I keep thinking of things. It's like, oh yeah, wait, what about the Nights? I was just talking about the Nights and like, oh shit, wait, we saw you play with Paul Simon. Not only were you playing with Paul Simon, I saw you sing on a big screen with, like, I just keep thinking of things. So there's a lot there. Yeah.
Thank you. When it's just your life, you just are like, oh, that just happened. That's right time, right place. But yeah, I've been really lucky to have some of those incredible experiences. But basically, straight out of school, so when I was in my undergrad and master's, I kind of fell in love with new music and working with composers who were peers of mine, and kind of like just this idea of like a safe place of creating new music that didn't have to be held to the high standard of history. And so that's how I got involved with, like a lot of the people that I still play with in Y music and composers that I met through Now Ensemble and all that. But I still very much had the dream of being an orchestral flute player. And I was lucky enough to have an amazing teacher at Juilliard, Robert Langevin, who's principal in the Phil, and he kind of brought me in. And right out of school, I ended up just covering like all these different leaves that kind of went on for about 6 years, 6 seasons of playing there. And I learned so much playing there. And honestly, it's to this day, I haven't let that dream go, which is probably insane because I have like 1,000 other dreams. And there's like a jack of all trades, master of none. There's got to be some like insert for dreams there. Like I have way too many wild dreams. I'm getting kind of up there, so I don't know. But yeah, so I did that. But then at the same time, I was still playing with all my new music groups, and Y music formed kind of while a lot of like indie bands and songwriters in New York were wanting to explore orchestral chamber music, classical instrumentation in their music. And I kind of was like doing it all. And then there came a time when, you know, there was the opening for real. And I kind of decided like, no, I'm going to go full in with the groups that I started, because I'm sure you know this experience, but it is a crazy thing when you start a group as a student or fresh out of school and you're not really getting paid for things. And then there comes a time where you start to see checks in the mail with like Y music on it. And you're like, whoa, how'd this happen? I guess this is a legit thing. So I decided to go like full in with that. And I was also playing with the Knights at that time. That's when we would just kind of play at each other's houses and pop-up concerts in the park and rehearse for 16 hours a day. It was bananas, but it was so much fun. Yeah, and then that, you know, that's pretty much my life now, minus, you know, I play the kind of the random orchestra thing that pops up that I'm able to do, and I'm always so happy to do that. It's like going back to my roots to play flute in that way. You know, so much of what I do in my chamber music groups, not in the Knights, is play the flute almost in a way that's not very fluty. And you know, it's all about like blending with other instruments and other timbres and creating textures that are trying to mimic electronic sounds or whatever. And so I love that, and I love finding new ways of expressing the voice of the flute, but also I love playing super romantic music and soaring melodies, and I love it all. Basically, my favorite thing to do is whatever I'm doing in that time. And I don't,
That's awesome.
it's like, it's a blessing and a curse. But,
well, I don't know. That sounds like, but yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. The bit that we've been around each other or played music together, it does feel it's like you're all in the best way.
Nice.
I remember to move from my giving you a hard time about being scary when you're actually not scary. The time I realized this was when we had that gig in Philadelphia together with Gabe and Alyssa and the dancers.
It was so fun.
It was so wonderful, and you were so kind, because it was like I'm definitely older than you. When you did your little aside, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but you have a wonderfully old soul a little bit. And I remember like everybody's like bunking up in this little apartment crashing, and you're just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm staying at my friend's spot. And I was like, I'm about to stay in like, and you were like, Jason, I think maybe do you need a respite? Yeah, which was wonderful. The gig was wonderful, and Alyssa and Gabe, the whole thing was totally wonderful. But it was like, okay, whoa, this is a lot of hang. Yeah, and I got to hear about space. Like a little space. And I think I got to hear about a lot of the other stuff you had going on a little bit. Like I remember asking you about all the awesome visual art that you're making. And I think I remember even at that time being like, I think that would be awesome to see some of your visual art happen on Brooklyn Bound. That'd be amazing. And then like slowly through things that have happened, it's like, oh wow, you're writing songs. That's amazing. Like there's this whole, you just talked about so much stuff that you're doing. And then there's this whole little thing that I mean, a lot of people know your visual art now as well, but like there's this like 100% Alex thing that's happening as well, which I'm so pumped is happening on Brooklyn Bound. What are you doing on Brooklyn Bound?
What am I doing?
Yeah. What is that space for you?
Well, this is a pretty big deal for me, because I've been writing kind of secret songs for, you know, many years now, actually. And not many people have heard them. And they've also remained very much unfinished, in the sense that, you know, I'm very limited by my technological skills, which you would think would have advanced a lot in that time. However, I don't know if it's that I'm purposefully keeping myself in the dark. I think that might be a lot of it.
I feel like it has to be, right? Yeah, that resonates with me.
Yeah, I accept that. But I'm very limited by, you know, what I can play on the MIDI keyboard and you know, my instruments that I already play, and I've kind of just left them in that state for so long. And then what happened was, actually during the beginning of the pandemic, you know, obviously it was a really scary time and so hard on so many people. For me, in addition to those things also being true, I was really into this kind of like time that wasn't attached to ambition or achievements actually. And I just found myself writing songs very easily without a lot of like hanging on to some idea of what they could or should, or I don't know. It was just it was a really beautiful time, honestly, for me, that I'm very thankful for. And I don't know how to talk about it because it's also attached to, so much trauma,
Sure,
but
yeah.
all I can do is talk about my experience. And it was a really calm kind of break. And so I just wrote a lot. And yeah, so I kind of decided, actually, I do want to see this through. If for nothing else, than to just finish it, like make something, finish this, so then I can practice what I preach, which is that you never run out of ideas, right? Like I think sometimes maybe it's easy for me to talk to other people about this because I have this so much in myself, but sometimes I'll have an idea and I'm afraid to let it go because I'm worried that I will never get another idea again. But it's like, if you don't let it go, then you won't have room for the new ideas to come in and be different or better or worse or whatever. But so I think, like, just as an exercise of kind of moving forward and maybe showing a different side of me, I just need to do it for that reason alone. So I'm doing Brooklyn Bound because you have been so awesome and supportive and really encouraging to me with all of my creativity, Jason. I do not want that to go unsaid. It means so much to me.
I
Yeah,
love that. I
and
feel that, but I think it's just like hey Alex, sure you don't want to do one next month? Like, I don't think it's not been a big it's been very easy to just be like, hey, what's going on over there, Alex? You got some awesome shit that's about to happen. When's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen?
and I always want to bail because I'm like, I want to do, no, I can't do it. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
I really struggle with that, but I will not bail this time.
you can.
I said
You got
it
a
here.
podcast
I
going.
can't bail. This is for real. There's a transcript that I can't see because I don't want to see how many times I say the word like. It's a lot, I'm sure.
Only
Don't
one.
be scanning that.
I am scanning. Look at the comments. If
But these,
anybody transcribes how many likes Alex has said, you got a free drink on me next time we see each other.
yeah, and then I'll be real scary again.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't make me scary.
Well, how many? So I've heard one of the songs we were talking about. I
Yeah.
got to play a little bit of stuff, and it sounds amazing. Like, there's so many of your sounds, so many beautiful voice, but then there's like this crazy bassoon stuff happening and crazy, like many awesome sounds. How many? What's your plan at this moment?
My plan, okay, so, well, just for a little more information, this is, so I said that not many people have heard these, and certainly no one's musicianship has ever touched these except for mine until this moment when I sent out 3 of my songs. And on each song I have, 1 or 2 friends who are coming in and adding real instruments and their own musicianship and voice to the songs, and it's awesome. But yeah, I've got 3 songs. I have a song that I just wrote last week called The Hem and the Haw, and then I have Loon, which you played on, and I have a song called Roses.
Amazing. I love something that you said before we started recording, was that when you have other people add real instruments, like people would always tell you like, oh, adding your flute here has really changed things. And you're like, really? Like, I don't know, it was probably fine with the MIDI before or whatever.
Yeah.
And then being on the other side, I was really intrigued by that, because I really feel that it's really different. Yeah.
It's so different. And, in a way, like, I, like so many of us, right? I think maybe especially in classical music, although maybe just it's hard to be a human.com. I'm really hard on myself and like very self-deprecating and quick to shut down compliments, which I know is a bad thing to do, and it's actually a very selfish thing to do.
I'm with you. I'm in
But
that club with you, I have to say. It's just like, and you want to turn it back around so quickly. I mean, I know this
yeah,
much, but I think I
yeah,
do it too, and like, yeah, leaving the space for the compliment and feeling the compliment, that feels like a life goal.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely something that I'm thinking of and trying to be consciously better about and more generous about in both directions. But when I would play on people's tracks, a lot of times, a lot of times it's very, very simple, and someone would be like, oh, what you said, what you added did so much and it lifted, and I'm kind of like, oh, really? Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I really see the value of what I do now as a collaborator and as someone who genuinely loves help people realize their music and their arrangements and kind of add color and ideas to their songs. And now opening that up to people who I love and think of as musical family. And then also, on one of my songs, I was brave enough to send it to one of the songwriters who I admire the most, Gabe Kahane. And he played piano and guitar on it, and was just like so kind and generous. And it makes me feel, it really moved me, actually. I mean, I was crying, and it's very emotional.
It's amazing.
It's really emotional. Yeah.
That's so cool. I have other questions I want to ask you, but I pegged something that you said that I thought was really cool that I've been thinking about a little bit too. And I think there's a natural cycle to these things that probably when you're at my age or you're at a certain point in your career, you start to think about these things. But when you were talking about like making a space without ambition, and like really hit, because like you had mentioned something too, and we were just talking about all the cool opportunities you've had, like the right place at the right timeness. And there's, I mean, like, I've been thinking about so much about that, or when people ask about the beginnings of So, or just this, like, what is the myth of meritocracy, but what is hard work mean? And what is just the right place at the right time? And what is ambition? All the things, and I guess maybe it does kind of even lead me into my next question, because what I wanted to ask was a little bit about the pandemic. And you kind of started to talk about that, about making a space during this time. So maybe we could put those two things together if you have any more thoughts about the ambition thing, but also just this time, like pandemic. And then I feel like partially because of the pandemic in this space, then like George Floyd's murder and big questions about equity, and in our scene, more conversations about it in a more explicit way. And then, I don't know, I feel like things just kept at like the election, I don't know, just like the most intense the most intense year of my lifetime in some ways, right? And then what does it mean to be an artist during this time? Like those kind of big questions would come up for me. And it feels like you started to answer that question a little bit with what it meant to make these songs, or at least like what the time meant for you.
I mean, that was very early on for me, the time I was talking about. I think that all of the other stuff that you talked about and touched on kind of made it, I'm sure, I mean, this time has been so wild, right? And there's been, at least for me, so many ups and downs in terms of my own creative practice, in flute playing, in writing songs, in painting. It's like gone in extreme ups and downs. But I think, like, during a large part of that, I felt like the world doesn't really need to hear from me. But now I'm coming around to, you can just share things. It doesn't need to be like, you need to hear this. But if you're just, if you're a creative person and you're just putting things out there to share, and I don't think that's as aggressive of an act as maybe I felt worried that it was for a little bit.
Right.
And then also just like, I'm just trying to listen more and be as supportive and open as a colleague and person in our industry as possibly can. And I don't know, just kind of showing a little vulnerability, I think, has been something that I think we've all become more in touch with and receptive to this past year. And that's why I think, I mean, in many ways, I think like I probably wouldn't have shared my songs if it wasn't coming out of like such a wild year. But it's like, they're just demos. Who cares? Just share them. What do you got to lose? It doesn't really matter,
Yeah.
It's like it only matters to us, all those little things, and then I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I feel like for a while, but then definitely during this time, like the paring down what it means to make music or to play concerts kind of did get down to sharing, like shared
Mhm.
experience or being in a room together, playing music together with the people you're playing with, or making a connection with an audience, which I miss so much. Like we were talking about it a little bit, the kind of streaming concerts, or like, so I think we've only played one show, which was like live streamed, and it was like so hard to play because you're like, where you're missing a piece of this puzzle, which is like the energy that you're like,
Yeah.
what's happening. So I have boiled a lot of this down to sharing, I think, like in a cool way. And when you put it like that, of like a not aggressive sharing, but a like a, yeah, put it out
Yeah.
there and then be willing and yearning to hear the other side too, or whatever, and a two-part share, a two-part conversation. um
Yeah.
yeah, I've been boiling it down to that a little bit.
Cool.
um which I think leads to a last question a little bit, which is yeah, we haven't played concerts for people in a long time, and I think I haven't realized this until it's been gone, that like I'm talking about, so for me, but all your bands, I know Y Music has a show tonight, so maybe Y Music, but I'm sure it's the same for the Nights or now any of the groups, like the kind of stories we tell ourselves, that the shared experiences we've had, that we tell
Oh
ourselves
yeah.
in the van as we go from concert to concert, and we add to them, but then we always retell the old ones too. Like, oh, the time that, you remember the time at this, or that this, we have all those stories.
Yeah.
So like for you, what if you could share one story? And I know for me that would be really
Oh.
hard, because I have the stories that are like the transcendental, this was an amazing show story, but I have a lot of the like, this crazy bad thing happened to us on stage or on tour or whatever it was. What's a fun pre-pandemic story
Oh
that
my
you
gosh,
think
that's
about
so hard, Jason. You should have warned me about this one.
I know. As I got to these last questions, I realized, like, okay, I just told you, like, yeah, we're just gonna have a conversation. It's chill. It's like, what does it mean to be an artist
In these times.
in these times? And then choose one story to share. It could just be
Yeah.
one, though. You're just sharing. You're just sharing one story.
I know, but I want it to be a great one. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Mm.
Oh, I
One for
can't.
each
I
group you play
can't.
with.
No, but like, what's your story? Have you shared your story on this
I'm not sure I
on this
have.
year?
I'm
Well,
not sure
maybe
I
you
have.
can like maybe you could share one, and
Yeah.
then it'll loosen something in my, because
Well, okay, this is not a Jank story, or this is not a So story. This is a Jank story, because I was talking with Jank, our mutual friend we've done some playing with. I was talking with him this morning. When I first moved to Princeton, we would play, I decided to do like a monthly at Small World. I don't know if you've been to Princeton much. There's a coffee shop in town, a kind of local hang,
yeah.
music at nights. I was doing a monthly. I would do like a monthly show, and I would get friends together to play. It could be, this was me trying to like figure some stuff out. Definitely like bring some of my pieces into the mix, whatever. And me and Jank love to improvise together. So we were doing like an hour-long improv set, and it was one of those like, weeks where I think students were gone, maybe it was spring break. So it's like we set up, and maybe there was only 8 people in the coffee shop anyway. And I remember Jank, he always plays electronics, like, but he brought this, he's a guitarist, and he brought this like Turkish guitar that he had gotten, and was going to try that for the first time. And so I was super pumped, and I'm playing drums, and like, I just remember starting to playing with my friend, close my eyes, just living in this music for an hour. And I just remember opening my eyes. Every single person was gone. It's like, you only started with 8, really could have gone either way. But I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this experience was 100% just for me and Jank. There was no reason that this should have happened in a coffee shop, probably. Like,
Yeah.
I don't even blame the coffee drinkers for leaving. They're like, this isn't what I signed up for on a Friday night.
Oh,
But I just
I
remember,
love it.
I'm an eyes closed improviser. I'm like an eyes open chamber musician, and I'm an eyes closed improviser. And it was just
Yes.
like nothing.
That's so
No,
beautiful.
0. Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
That's one.
really
I
love
appreciate that you asked me, because I definitely have a running list of them when I ask this question that
Yeah,
I think of that are like my so stories or my, but that's a,
I
yeah.
well, it's fun, like what you're, I obviously miss the experience of making beautiful music on stage and all that, but I also super miss all of the really silly, dumb shit that happens that we then just, create these stories that we talk about,
Totally.
like you said, in the van. But I think I'm gonna out myself right now and tell one of my most embarrassing stories ever, but it's also like it's very precious story to me. Okay.
Amazing.
So my first big Asia tour with the New York Philharmonic, I was probably, I don't know, 24 or 25. And our first stop was Tokyo, Suntory Hall. And, we had a day off and whatever. And I remember the day of the concert, I went for a run out in the park outside the hotel. And I was living large, loving it in Japan for the first time, freaking out, gonna play Mahler 1. And it was springtime and I had really bad allergies. Okay. I decided on this trip, for reasons unknown, that I would save space in my suitcase by combining my pills. Okay. So we see where this story is going. So my allergies were really bad. It was like an hour and a half before the concert. I was at the concert hall warming up and I just like felt congested and I took a pill. About 10 minutes after I took the pill, I was like playing scales and I felt like this hot wave of like vomit panic go across my body. And I thought, I think I took the wrong pill. I took an Ambien.
Oh no, that's terrible.
So
No.
the story like gets super gruesome, but I'll just tell it. So
Wait,
I panicked.
you put Ambien and allergy pills into one bottle.
I was young and stupid. And I mean, like, instead of rethinking the 19 pairs of pants I brought, I like would save space by combining pills, which are the tiniest things. So I'm in the bathroom trying to make myself throw up. Meanwhile, people are arriving from the orchestra. Meanwhile, up to this point, I've been trying to keep a low profile and be taken seriously. Now everyone hears me trying to puke up my, okay. So I finally tell someone what's going on and they take me to see the Philharmonic doctor upstairs. This is like 20 minutes before the show starts. He also couldn't get me to get the pill back out. So he made me drink an entire bottle of Mylanta and then took me down to the canteen and got me 3 shots of espresso. Meanwhile, at this point, everybody in the orchestra knows what's going on. And they're all just like, look at this dumbass person just like flailing. I mean, they were probably loving it and laughing so hard. Yeah. So, okay, all said and done, I have no idea how the concert went. I don't remember anything about playing it, but I do remember I remember occasionally the other flute players just kind of like looking at me, like, is she still there? And I remember being like, I'm still here. I don't remember anything. But yeah, I live to tell the tale. But what's funny is that in sharing that story, there were 2 people in the orchestra who that had also happened with at different times. Wow. But I think accidental Ambien is like a whole thing. Also, that's a good title for something.
Absolutely. 4th tune, maybe the EP title.
Accidental Ambien.
That's amazing. You win. Without knowing it, I think you have won the story contest. I didn't even tell you there's a contest, but the winner is, that's crazy. I am so nervous. Like if I was playing with an orchestra in general, in a section, I haven't really played in a section of an orchestra, any kind of big, I would just be scared to play the concert in general. And then the idea of doing it while I'm trying to stay awake, wow.
I mean, you can't fall asleep while playing Mahler 1 though. Like it's just not, it wouldn't happen. I mean, I know that now.
You're not
right?
a percussionist though.
But
the percussionist would be like, come out. Wow. Yeah. You had enough playing, you couldn't.
I don't think so, but I don't think it was ever really a danger, but like not playing well is a whole other thing. I'm sure I didn't play great, like, let's face it.
Yeah. but good enough to nothing terrible happened. The conductor trusted you the next concert still. It was good enough to.
Oh gosh, I shudder to think what.
Oh my gosh.
What Mazel possibly thought when he heard that story.
Oh, right. He was
so
conducting.
embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
Oh, I love that, Alex. Thanks for sharing. That's really meaningful.
Well, I really love telling embarrassing stories. It's kind of a whole thing. It's a whole trip that I'm on now. I wish people would just be really proud of their embarrassing stories, because I'm weirdly proud of them because they're so horrifying. But yeah, and I've got so many. So
there's more for the set that you do next year. We'll have another. We'll slowly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Love this. Well, this music is happening. If anybody's made it this far, just joking,
Yeah.
Alex. Everybody has
left the coffee shop.
Oh yeah, exactly. If you haven't left the coffee shop yet, what is it? May 27th, 7 p.m. show. Alex is going to be killing the chat on YouTube. She's all
over it.
The best chatter. Ask her all the questions. I'm so pumped, Alex. Thanks for chatting this afternoon. And
thanks for having me. And thank you for encouraging me. It means so much.
All the time. All the time. I'll see you soon. Bye.